So fortunate. Jenna, thank you so very much.
Eddie Watkins, he can write a song, right?
And you can sing it. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you all for coming out today. Welcome to the Alaska Center for Spiritual Living. And welcome to those of you who will be watching on YouTube. Thank you for watching as well. Last week there was a big football game. They had the Super Bowl, and after the game I started thinking, and I thought, what are the characteristics? What does it take to create this Super Bowl winning team? The Patriots have won what? 3 out of the last 5. They've won 6 Super Bowl championships now, and I think that's more than double any other team. What do they have and what do they do? What is their secret? And then I looked at those and I thought, those things are some of the very same things that are keys for us in our lives to have Super Bowl winning lives. And I identified the 5 Ds: desire, determination, discipline, direction, and distinction. So first of all, desire is to want something. When I go for a definition of something, a good place to look is in the Science of Mind glossary, and Ernest Holmes wrote this about desire. Half-hearted wishing must not be confused with desire. Our wishing is always capricious. We long for one thing today, and tomorrow our attention is directed elsewhere. Desire is that something which impels us to reach out and take our own. This is the divine urge, which operating as law produces energy. And energy must find an outlet. This is why suppressed desire often produces discord and discomfort. Desire for anything is the thing itself in incipiency. This means that legitimate desire is the voice of spirit in you, trying to indicate that the thing you desire is already on its way to you. Before they call, I will answer. Now, as we approach this and we look at desire, very often we start off with desiring change within our lives. And we come into this place where we've got that thing or those things within our lives which don't bring us joy, which are problems for us in our lives. And so our desire is to have those things changed. And as we go through classes, and I love watching the foundations class, and people start experimenting with this kind of stuff, and they'll start with things like parking places or short grocery lines or green lights. That's my favorite. I still do that. And this stuff does really work. So we start off with things like that. But as we mature in this philosophy and we start doing things differently and we start seeing how these principles, spiritual principles, work in our lives, we move on. And I think we move to a place where sometimes our biggest desire is to feel the presence of God in our lives. To feel the presence of God. Number 2 is determination. Well, what is determination? I like to think of it as what I call stick-to-itiveness. It's where we are determined to do something. And in football, I boil this down. This is my own homespun philosophy. This isn't anything I read anywhere. But it boils down to 5 basic skill sets: blocking, tackling, running, throwing, and kicking. 5 basic things. All the other stuff that goes on in this Super Bowl can be boiled down to those 5 things. Well, in the Super Bowl of our lives, we have 5 things that we can do, and we call those spiritual practices. And these are things that we can do to hone in on win that Super Bowl of our life. They're prayer, meditation, affirmation, circulation, and visioning. These are things that we talk about in our classes, and I talk about these every week, and I won't go into them now. But I think it's important to note that these are fundamentals. Just as blocking and tackling are the fundamentals of football and the fundamentals of a championship Super Bowl winning team, so too are prayer and meditation and visioning, circulation, part of the fundamentals of a Super Bowl winning life. And it's the consistent use of our spiritual practices. Not that we just do it on and off, or just that we only vision at certain times, or we only pray when we have trouble or opportunities within our lives. It's the consistent use of these spiritual practices. The third thing is discipline. Discipline. There was a movie some years ago, and it was called Any Given Sunday. And in this movie, Al Pacino was an aging NFL coach. And in one scene, he gives a monologue, and this is what he says. He's talking about football, like life, is a game of inches. The inches we need are everywhere around us. On this team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch, because we know that when we add up those inches, that's going to be the difference between winning and losing. We had a practitioner meeting yesterday, and I want to give a shout out to our practitioners and the dedication that they have. We have 14 practitioners, and they are here serving this congregation every single week. And I value and appreciate them so very, very much. And at the meeting yesterday, I had a little opportunity to talk, and I talked about death by inches. I put that in the agenda, so when the agenda came out, everybody, what is that? Well, I got attendance up at the practitioner meeting, that's for sure. They want to hear what death by inches was. As you know, I'm a football fan, and I'm a fan of the Denver Broncos, and they just hired a new coach. And at his very first presser, he was up talking, and one of the members of the press asked him a question, and his answer was, well, we're not going to have any more death by inches. Well, nobody said anything right away. Finally, one of the news guys in the back kind of raised, what is death by inches? And this is the way he described it. He said, we have a meeting every Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock. And he said, we can have one player show up 15 seconds late. Now, that isn't a big deal, and in 15 seconds, he's not going to miss an important part of the season. It's not going to cost us the Super Bowl. It's not going to cost us even the playoffs. It's, one player misses 15 seconds. But the next week, we have two players, and they show up 32 seconds late. And the next week, we have three players, and they're a minute late. By the time we get halfway through the season, we've got 6 or 8 guys that are showing up 10 minutes late. And in the fourth quarter of the important game, when it's decided whether or not we're going to be able to go to the playoffs or not, we don't have the discipline to execute that play perfectly to defeat the other team. And we're no longer going to have death by inches. I thought that was powerful. I see a bright future for my beloved Broncos as they avoid death by inches. And we can use that same discipline in our lives when we stay dedicated to those spiritual principles. It's easy sometimes to say, oh, well, I don't need to vision for that. I already know what I'm going to do. It's already done. I've already made up my mind. This is what I'm going to do. But that's a time when we are thinking that we are smarter than God and that we know better than what's going to happen. And we think we're going to run our lives better than the divine. It's the times when we don't pray. We don't enter into prayer, maybe not for ourselves, but for someone else. And there is always an opportunity for prayer. I would submit right now is a really good time for prayer for our city, for our state, for our country, for our globe. We can all use a little prayer. And we can avoid death by inches when we stay committed to our spiritual practices. Another part of football and the discipline that is involved there deals with rules. You know, there are rules in football. And if you violate the rules, you get a yellow flag and a penalty. And there are rules in life. Rules, you know, really control a lot of what we do. We have a lot of rules in life. I was talking with a nurse the other day, and she told me of an incident that happened when she was a nurse in training. She was given the task of helping with people getting discharged from the hospital. And one of the rules was that they would have to be taken out in a wheelchair. And so she got an assignment. She was supposed to go to room 362 or whatever it was and help this person with their discharge. So she showed up with her wheelchair, and there in the hospital room, sitting on the end of the bed, was a nice-looking gentleman who was in a suit. He was all dressed and obviously ready to go, and at his feet was a suitcase and whatnot. And she says, "Oh, great." She says, "Glad to see you're ready to go. You'll have to get in a wheelchair." And he says, "Oh, no, ma'am, no, I don't need a wheelchair." "Oh, yes, you do. It's the rule. You're supposed to be..." "Ma'am, no, please. I don't need the wheelchair. It's the rule. Now, I don't want to hear another word about it. Get in this wheelchair." So the man shrugged his shoulders and he sat down in the wheelchair. And I think that was probably going through his mind, something that goes through my mind sometimes when we get in arguments, says, you know, it's better to just quit arguing and let them be wrong. So he kind of shrugged his shoulders. He went in and he sat down in the wheelchair, and she wheels him off, and they're in the elevator going down, and she said, "Oh, will your wife be picking you up today?" And he said, "No, I don't think so." "Oh, well, why not?" "Because she's still upstairs in the bathroom taking off her hospital gown." You know, we got rules. We don't have to like the rules. See, the people who watch on YouTube never get the good jokes because they always come during the collection, so I had to throw in one of my best ones there. Direction. The fourth D, direction. A coach builds teamwork. A coach provides the direction for the team. I want to talk, and I didn't list every team. I didn't get out my handbook and read through it. These are just the teams at our center that popped into my mind. I didn't even look these up. But we have our practitioners. We have our leadership council, the potluck team, the sound team. Thank you all to the sound team. Everybody needs to appreciate the sound team. They're the ones that turn off my microphone while I'm singing. So we all owe them a great deal of appreciation. The sound team, the Sunday social team. Every week after service, we have, you know, a little snack. We don't have the full-blown potluck. We have that the first Sunday, but every Sunday we've got a little bit of something. The circulation team, they help collect the money. Their leader hasn't put out a schedule since December. That'd be me. That'd be me. The coffee brewing team. Now that is a high-functioning team. It's a coffee brewing team. They have taken us from that battery acid I used to make to really good coffee. The music team and the choir. What could we do without them? The birthday celebration team. Zoe, and we're singing every month. And the hospitality support team is kind of a new one, and it's just helping all of those things that we do in the fellowship hall. So those are just the team that have been, and so we come together as a team. I can't talk about a team without talking about the 1980 Miracle on Ice. Now, I know most of you have heard that, but some of you may not be followers of hockey. And unfortunately, it looks like a lot of you were born after 1980. I think that stands out as perhaps the most significant sporting achievement ever in any sport anywhere in the world. In 1979, the United States was charged with putting together a hockey team to compete in the 1980 Olympics. At that time, we did not allow professionals to compete for our Olympic teams. We didn't think that was right. The rest of the world really didn't fit into it that well. For example, the mighty Russians, they didn't have professionals as such, but they had organized professional leagues, and the players just happened to be members of the military and were highly compensated for participating in their leagues. They were professionals. The Canadians were sort of halfway in between, more like us. And the rest of the world, like I say, we're using highly compensated professional players, highly skilled. Well, we didn't have much of a choice, and we picked a coach. His name was Herb Brooks, and he began a selection process, and he took a selection of college kids. A lot of them were from the Boston College team. A lot of them were from Minnesota, and a few others mixed in. But they were just college kids. These kids, they weren't even drafted for the pros. They weren't there. They were good kids. They were good athletes. But they weren't on the level of all these others. The Russians were so dominant. Just to give you an example, the Russians came over to practice in the United States before the Olympics, and they played an NHL or all-star team. This is a collection of the, I think it was 21 or 22 best players in the NHL, the professionals from the United States. The Russians beat them 6-1. Wow. And our little team, I mean, they didn't even have matching jerseys until well into the process of their coaching. But what they did, nothing came before the team. The only thing that mattered was the team. The team is the most important thing. And everything they did centered around the team. Everything was for the team. Every sacrifice, everything that they did was for the team. Well, in those days, they played round robin, 2 rounds of it, and then instead of having a playoff like we have today, you continued. They had a championship round robin, and that's how you determined the gold medalist. In a surprising upset, the little United States team, I don't think they won, but they came very high in their pool. They were high enough in their pool that they made it to the championship round. And in the championship round, I forgot who they played first. I don't remember. But they, I think they tied their first game. They won their second game in a real surprise upset. I think it was over Sweden. And then they faced the mighty Russians. And, you know, they didn't even fill the stadium. In the United States of America, they didn't even fill the stadium. Nobody, there's no way this ragtag group of college kids could beat the mighty Russians. En route to this moment, the United States team was playing, and I don't think it was in the Olympics yet. It was a warm-up kind of a tournament before. The United States played, might have been Norway. They played a game, and they won. But every player knew they had not been playing exclusively as a team. They they weren't playing to the top of what they could do as a team. Well, after games in Olympic competition, it's a tradition that teams line up and shake hands and go the other way. They finished that. Coach Brooks walked out with his whistle, and he blew his whistle. He said, line up on the blue line, or line up on the goal line. Players knew what was coming. Crushers. And they lined up on a red line, the goal line. He blew his whistle. Sprint to the blue line and back. Blew his whistle. Goal line to the half line and back. Blew his whistle. Goal line to the far blue line and back. Blew his whistle. Goal line to the other goal line and back. And then they started again and again and again. The custodians of the building finally turned out the lights. They had been there so long. And in the dark, he blew his whistle. You will play as a team. Well, guess what happened when they played the mighty Russians? That little ragtag group of kids, they were kids, they were teenagers, playing against the best professional hockey team in the world. And they beat them. Because they knew where everybody was on the ice at every moment. And if one player went down, they had another one that would be over the boards and in the game instantly. They played as a team. One of the things that we teach in this philosophy is that each and every one of us are individualized expressions of the Most High. We are all beloved children of God. And if we are children of God, we must have God DNA within us. And we can open ourselves up and allow that divine current to flow through us and with us as us. So we have all of the potential for the hockey winning team, for the Super Bowl winning team, for the best quarterback, the best tight end, the best whatever, within each and every one of us at every moment. We have that on our team already. And it is only for us to open up and allow that divine current to flow with us. We are already on a championship team by our birthright. No, I can't. But God can, and we're on the same team. My fourth D is distinction. An English novelist by the name of Charles Reade wrote, "Sow an act and reap a habit. Sow a habit and reap a character. Sow a character and you reap a destiny." And it is my contention and belief that this destiny integrates desire, determination, discipline, and direction to create a life of distinction. So my takeaway today, the final takeaway, we'll get back to those football terms. And I advise you, admonish you to tackle your problems. Block your fears. Throw a lot of love to your teammates. Kick negative self-talk to the curb and run your life with grace and joy. A little fun one today. So with this awareness of the power and the presence of God within each and every one of us and within our lives, I invite my colleagues, the practitioners, to join me at the line of scrimmage of life. And we snap the ball on two, knowing that we live in an abundant universe. And despite the appearance of lack and limitation, each one of us has been blessed with abundance and prosperity. Know that in spite of the appearance of dis-ease that each one of us has deep within us, within every cell, within every atom, within every subatomic particle, an intelligence that knows what is perfect. There is a blueprint of perfection, physical health perfection within each and every one of us, and it is that blueprint that I call forth for those that are experiencing anything other than perfect health. And I know that as sons and daughters of God, each one of us have to be beings of love, because God is love and we are of God. Therefore, we must be beings of love. And so as we go about our life and we have situations where we have things that appear to be separation, whether they be family relationships, work relationships, romantic relationships, it makes no difference, because it's all the activity of God. And we can just step our own selves out of the way. We can get our bloated nothingness out of the way, and we can see the God in one another. We can see that the love of God governs our lives. And so now we can just step back and let it go. We can give thanks for all of the beautiful relationships in our lives. We can give thanks for our health, and we give thanks for the prosperity in our lives. And now we just sit back and let it all flow, because God is on our team. We let it go, we let it be, and so it is.